When most of us picture the Great Plains of Native America, we imagine a warrior galloping on horseback across an endless sea of grass. But look at this photograph. While it documents a very real culture, the famous mounted warriors of the plains did not exist in 1491. Horses had actually gone extinct in the Americas thousands of years earlier, only returning much later with European colonization. Because of that timeline, a persistent myth developed. We tend to view the center of the continent before European contact as a vast, empty waiting room, a quiet wilderness holding its breath for history to begin. Removing that myth reveals a very different reality. Pre-colonial North America was a densely populated, loud, and constantly evolving landscape of interconnected nations. Across the enormous grasslands of the continent's interior, people traveled entirely on foot. Communities moved their camps and transported their belongings over vast distances, often working alongside domesticated dogs. Their daily lives were intricately tied to the massive herds of bison that populated the region. A single animal offered nearly everything a community needed to survive: meat for calories, thick hides for shelter, and bones crafted into specialized tools. Taking down a 2,000-pound mammal on foot requires immense coordination. Hunters developed highly organized cooperative strategies to carefully guide entire herds toward natural traps and dangerous terrain. Plains societies had already mastered their environment. They built complex economies and societies on their own terms, long before the first horse stepped back onto the grasslands. Further east, around the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River, the endless grass gives way to dense forests. Here, the geography supported massive, high-density populations. Rather than following herds, these communities engineered huge agricultural systems. They cultivated maize, beans, and squash, creating a reliable caloric engine that allowed thousands of permanent villages to expand across the region. That agricultural stability supported complex social frameworks. In many of these nations, ancestry and inheritance flowed exclusively through the mother's bloodline. Because of this matrilineal kinship, women held significant economic authority and shaped critical political decisions. These growing populations actively engaged in intense diplomacy. Leaders constantly negotiated borders, organized trade, and forged binding political alliances with neighboring nations. Further south and west, the legacy of ancient cities like Cahokia continued to shape the continent. Look at the immense scale and engineered geometry of this earthen mound. Millions of people throughout the Mississippi Valley kept building monumental towns and ceremonial plazas governed by powerful chiefdoms. The plains, woodlands, and southern chiefdoms were linked by a sprawling trade network. Solid copper from the Great Lakes passed down the river valleys. Simultaneously, marine shells from the Gulf Coast moved deep into the continent's interior. Along with raw materials, this supply chain transported culture. The embossed figures on this copper plate show how advanced artistry, religious ideas, and complex craftsmanship traveled directly between communities. Decades before any European explorer stepped onto the shoreline, North America was already tied together by a constant flow of human exchange. Because of all this interaction, the political map of 1491 was entirely fluid. Over centuries, enormous communities migrated across the landscape, powerful nations splintered apart, and brand new alliances were born. European colonization would later violently accelerate these demographic shifts through disease and territorial warfare, but the shifting of borders and identities was already a natural part of life here. Native history possesses the exact same restless energy as any other civilization on Earth. It is a story defined entirely by motion. In the dense forests of the Northeast, that constant motion led to a major political reorganization. Amidst a landscape of shifting borders, 5 powerful nations decided to end generations of cyclical conflict and unite their people. They forged the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Under a great law of peace, they established a unified central council and a sophisticated system of checks and balances designed to resolve disputes through diplomacy rather than war. By transforming 5 rival nations into a cohesive political power, they created one of the most remarkable political systems in the history of the continent. Understanding how this alliance functioned is where our journey goes next.